All right, so get this. Over 115,000 comments. That's what we're diving into today.
Whoa.
Yeah. So VP Harris, she did this interview with Fox News, right?
Right.
And the internet, it kind of exploded.
Yeah.
And you know why you should care about this? Because buried in this mountain of, hot takes and everything is a crash course in public sentiment. Like, it's raw, unfiltered. This is what's hitting home with people and what's like totally missing the mark. So, ready to decode this thing?
Absolutely.
Okay. Let's start with, I think, the most prevalent theme, which is this whole VP Harris deflecting blame onto former President Trump.
It's interesting how this blame-shifting accusation, it just keeps popping up.
Right.
It seems to be like a recurring theme in the public's perception of the current administration.
Totally. And I feel like we've seen this before.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, people were not holding back. We've
Yeah.
got comments like, clearly, she intends to use Donald Trump as an excuse forever.
Oh, my God.
Or even comparing it to calling their mechanic about a car problem, only to be told it's because of Trump.
Oh, come on. It's
Yeah.
like a get-out-of-jail-free card.
Right.
But it's so funny. It's almost comical how often it comes up. But it also makes you wonder, like, why does this particular type of accusation really resonate with so many people?
Yeah.
Is it, reflecting some pre-existing beliefs about VP Harris herself? Or is it, does it point to a larger frustration with the current political climate?
Yeah, because if we kind of like zoom out a bit, this blame game, it's kind of a classic political tactic.
Right.
Right.
Totally.
But the sheer volume of comments that are fixated on it here, it suggests that this might be hitting a nerve with people.
Interesting.
And it makes you think, is this actually an effective strategy in this case? Or is this possibly backfiring
Right.
by alienating certain segments of the audience?
Totally. Yeah. Because repetition, I think, can be such a powerful tool for emphasis.
Right.
But it also,
Leads to audience fatigue.
Okay, so we've got the blame shifting. Another big point of contention in these comments was this whole dodging questions thing.
And
yeah,
and the frustration is palpable.
Oh, yeah.
One commenter clearly at the end of their rope goes, can she answer one question without circling back to Trump? She is pathetic.
Oh, my gosh.
Another even compares watching the interview to a car crash. You can't look away.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's brutal.
It is.
But it's so true. And it's like that perceived evasiveness, it just fuels this existing distrust, I think, that some people have towards politicians in general. It's like they already think politicians are all spin and no substance.
Yeah.
And then moments like this just confirm those suspicions.
Especially in today's media landscape where information spreads so quickly, it can be hard to know who to trust.
Right.
And that brings us to another really interesting thread that emerged, which is the praise for Fox News and the interviewer in this case for asking those tough questions.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's like some viewers were surprised
Yeah.
that a traditionally left-leaning figure went on Fox News in the first place.
Really?
We even have comments like, I never thought they would interview Kamala.
Wow.
Which speaks volumes, I think, about how people perceive the current media landscape.
Totally.
Right? This whole idea that different news outlets are just echo chambers. They only interview people they agree with.
Right.
So when a figure like VP Harris goes on a platform like Fox News, it's seen as something unusual,
Right.
maybe even daring.
It's noteworthy.
Yeah. And I think the fact that some viewers see this as noteworthy, it raises some interesting questions about expectations for journalistic integrity these days.
Totally.
Do people crave tougher questioning across the political spectrum? And what does it say about the state of our media when a contentious interview is seen as something out of the ordinary?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got the blame shifting, we've got the dodging, and now we've got this whole conversation about the media itself. This interview is like a political Rorschach test.
Right. It really is.
But before we spiral too far down the rabbit hole here, let's talk about, I guess, the elephant in the room. A lot of these comments are predicting doom and gloom for VP Harris.
Yeah.
Like straight up.
Yeah, there are a lot of very strong reactions, with many convinced that this interview was incredibly damaging to her image.
Interesting.
We're talking comments like, this interview will someday be seen as the turning point that ended Kamala's campaign for president.
Wow.
She put the nail in her own coffin.
Bold predictions.
Yeah.
It's easy to get swept up in that, especially when you see those kinds of comments repeated over and over.
It's important to remember, though, we are looking at a very specific slice of the pie here.
That's true.
Online comments, by their very nature, tend to be dominated by the most vocal voices. It's not always reflective of broader public opinion.
Right. It's a good reminder to take things with a grain of salt, even when they seem really overwhelming.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But just because it's a specific slice doesn't mean we should ignore it, right?
Yeah, absolutely not.
Like, it's still a valuable piece of the puzzle when you're trying to understand the bigger picture of public sentiment.
Right. Think of it like this. These comments are a window into the thoughts and feelings of a particular group of people. They might not represent everyone.
Right.
But they can still reveal some really important insights, I think, into the broader political conversation.
Totally. And it wasn't all doom and gloom either. I was actually surprised by how many comments defended VP Harris, even criticized the interviewer, or saw the interview as a success.
That's such a crucial point. It's so easy to get caught up in the dominant narrative.
Yeah.
But there are always multiple perspectives at play.
Right.
And those dissenting voices, even if they're less prevalent in this case, they're essential, I think, to a balanced understanding of this situation.
Totally. It's like there are three sides to every story. Your side, my side, and the truth.
Right.
And we can't get closer to the truth without acknowledging all those different sides.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For example, we have comments like this one. As an independent voter, thank you for asking her the hard questions. No one else wants to ask them, and we need answers. So it's a completely different take on the interview, highlighting a desire, I think, for more accountability and transparency from those in power.
And that's what makes this whole deep dive so fascinating. Like, we're seeing firsthand how differently people interpret the same event.
Yeah.
And they're often filtering it through, their own existing beliefs and biases.
Absolutely.
It's just a reminder that public opinion is rarely, if ever, a monolithic thing. It's complex. It's always evolving. It's this tapestry of different viewpoints influenced by a million different factors.
It is.
It's easy to forget that, though, when you're just scrolling through a comment section. It feels overwhelmingly one-sided. Like our own personal echo chambers are just amplified online.
Exactly. That's why it's so important to actively seek out diverse perspectives, even when they challenge our own assumptions.
Right.
It's how we break free from those echo chambers and develop, I think, a more nuanced understanding of the world around us.
I love that. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about the dominant themes, the dissenting voices, the importance of perspective. But before we move on, was there anything in particular that stood out to you while we were going through these comments?
Beyond the specific topics that we've discussed, I was really struck by the sheer intensity of the reactions.
Oh, yeah.
Regardless of whether people were praising or criticizing VP Harris, there was just this palpable sense of passion there, this feeling that the stakes were incredibly high.
Oh, totally. You could practically feel the heat radiating off some of these comments. Like, everyone's glued to their screens, watching the political arena unfold in real time.
Yeah.
And they are not afraid to make their voices heard.
No, they are not.
Okay.